Here's a guy who thinks it's impossible for God to not exist.
Hi, how do you know that there's a God? It's actually a very simple question, and the answer is so easy. By doing some deductive reasoning, you can know that there is a God. You can also show it to others. Now, as with most apologetics, most unbelievers will not accept this because their reason for being an unbeliever is not a scientific reason or a logical reason. The power of God for salvation is in the gospel, not in human reasoning.
Then what's the point of trying to make a deductive argument?
But this is a very logical short proof for there being a God. At the end, I'll share one more passage that actually proves a theory that Einstein invented, after it had been in the Bible for over 2,500 years.
If it had been in the Bible for thousands of years, in what sense did Einstein invent it?
So let's assume that we don't know. Or we are agnostic. That's what the word agnostic means, without knowledge. Now let's figure out a basic question. Where did everything come from?
This is not a basic question. A basic question would not be predicated on any underlying assumptions. It doesn't make sense to ask where everything came from unless you assume that everything came, that it wasn't always here to begin with. This is a when did you stop staring at my ass kind of question. What's extra silly about this question is that it's predicated on an assumption that you don't even believe. You don't actually believe that everything came from somewhere because everything would include God, and you don't believe that God came from anywhere.
Where did the world come from? Where did life come from?
Where did God come from? If he didn't need to come from anywhere, why did the universe?
I'm going to narrow it down to two choices, something or nothing.
Those aren't the only two choices. If I said that God either came from something or nothing, you'd be able to see why that's a false dichotomy.
Can you think of another choice between those two?
Yeah, the other choice is that the universe didn't come at all. It didn't come from something or from nothing. It's just always been here.
Realize that if you say energy, that would be something. It would not be nothing. It couldn't be nothing, because that would absolutely make no sense whatsoever.
That's why it makes no sense to say that God made everything out of nothing.
There had to be something for all eternity past.
What do you mean by all eternity past? Do you mean for all time? Well, the universe is the space-time continuum, so the universe would fit that description. The universe has existed for all of time by definition. The universe is all of time and space. If what you mean is for an infinite amount of time, that assumes that there has been an infinite amount of time. It's not clear that this is the case. Obviously, God can't have existed for an infinite amount of time if there hasn't been an infinite amount of time. If there has been an infinite amount of time, then the universe has existed for all eternity past, because the universe, being the space-time continuum, exists whenever time does.
You can try this with a bank that you don't have an account with. Try withdrawing money. If it works, please teach me. So we can deduce from this that there always was at least something. For all eternity.
Yes, there has always been a universe, because the universe, by definition, extends through all of time. So there was never a time when the universe did not exist. This is true whether there has been an infinite amount of time or not.
What it is, we haven't figured out yet.
Yeah, we have. It's the universe.
So then the next question. This something which was eternal, was it something personal or impersonal?
I guess that depends on whether you think the universe is a person.
Something personal would be a being that has personality. Something impersonal would be like a rock, energy, gas, or some liquid. Anyway, now the question again is, are there any other options? I myself can't think of any other options. Could we all have come from something impersonal?
Yeah, personality is a particular kind of activity sometimes carried out by matter. Matter does not always carry out this activity, therefore matter is not inherently personal.
That would not make any sense either. First question would be, how did personality develop? I mean, we don't see a rock getting angry. Our furniture doesn't fall in love with some other piece of furniture. Have you ever seen an anxious box? Even when you are about to throw it in the trash?
That's like saying that digestion couldn't have developed from matter because rocks don't eat other rocks, or that photosynthesis can't be a material process because chairs don't do it. The fact that matter doesn't always carry out a particular activity doesn't mean that it is incapable of developing the ability to carry it out.
Second of all, The second law of thermodynamics teaches that everything will go towards disorder. Energy will go towards less useful type of energy. Turn the light on and part of the energy will go towards heat. It really goes against all logic that's to say that something complex, as for instance the human body, could develop without a designer.
The physics of entropy only says that the net amount of usable energy in the universe decreases over time. That doesn't mean that it can't increase in small pockets like you see in biology. Biology increases in order over time, despite the fact that the total amount of order in the universe decreases, because the fusion process in the sun, whence biology gets the energy it needs to function, actually decreases the amount of usable energy far more than biology increases it. It certainly doesn't follow from this that complexity requires conscious design.
When you see a beautiful painting, you know that there was a painter who made it. A book is written by an author and a building is designed by an architect.
The only reason I know that is because I've seen people paint paintings, write books, and build buildings. If I had never seen anybody do any of these things, I would have no rational basis on which to infer that they weren't perfectly natural phenomena.
So creation is made by Creator.
How do you know that the universe is a creation? You can't infer that from the mere fact that it exists, or even that it is complex. This should be obvious to you because you believe that God exists and is complex, yet you don't think that God must therefore have a creator.
Because the only logical conclusion that we can come to is that everything came from something eternal.
Again, if by eternal you mean something that has existed for infinite time, that would depend on whether there has been infinite time. And if there has been infinite time, then the universe itself would be something eternal.
That has personality.
I still don't see why it would need personality. Your argument for why personality can't evolve from matter was just that not all matter has it. That's a complete non sequitur.
At the end, I promise you one passage which really shows how God made everything. It's Jeremiah 10, verse 12. He hath made the earth by his power. He established the world by his wisdom and hath stretched out the heavens by his discretion. Notice, God took his power and created the earth. He took energy and made matter. It's almost like E equals mc squared.
I thought that God created the universe out of nothing. Instead, he created it out of energy? Where did the energy come from? I don't think that energy is what the Bible meant when it mentioned God's power. In this context, it seems to be using the term power to mean ability. I don't think the Bible authors intended power to refer to an amount of energy transferred over time the way physicists use the word power.
Now watch this next short video to see the 4 theories that are out there and how God created the earth. You'll have a good insight after just a few minutes. It's worth your time.
I kind of doubt that it is. To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.